She said, "I'm not coming to your dad's funeral. I already have plans with my friends." I responded, "I understand." Then I blocked her number and didn't speak to her for 3 weeks. When she showed up at my door crying about how I ghosted her during a hard time. My dad died 8 weeks ago. Pancreatic cancer. It's the quick and mean one that takes people before you've had time to process what's happening. 6 weeks from diagnosis to his final day. I'm still wrapping my head around it. This isn't a post about grief though. This is about the moment I realized my girlfriend of 3 years was actually a supporting character in my life story, not a co-lead like I'd thought. And supporting characters sometimes need to be written out of the script. Some quick background. I'm 28, she's 27. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party where we bonded over being the only sober people there. Me because I was the designated driver, her because of medication. We've been living together for about a year and a half in a rental house in Minneapolis. No pets, no kids, no shared finances beyond splitting the rent and utilities. Both our names were on the lease, but we maintained separate bank accounts, separate car payments, separate cell phone plans relevant for later. I work as a software developer for a healthcare company downtown. The job is fine, decent pay, good benefits, and I can usually work from home 1 or 2 days a week. Natalie, my now ex, works in marketing for a local brewery. My dad had been feeling off for a while before he finally went to the doctor. By then the cancer had already spread. Terminal from the jump. When I got the call from my mom, I sat in my car in the Target parking lot for almost an hour just staring at nothing. Natalie was sympathetic at first. She brought home my favorite takeout that night, listened while I talked about my dad, and held me when I needed to be held. Standard good partner stuff. But as the weeks went on and my dad got sicker, her patience began to visibly thin. "You're at the hospital again," she'd text when I'd tell her I wouldn't be home for dinner. "Don't you think your mom can handle it for one night?" she'd ask when I'd get up early on a Saturday to drive to my parents' house in St. Paul, just a 20-minute drive away. "I miss fun, Mike," she said one night about 3 weeks after the diagnosis. "Cancer, Mike, is kind of a downer. I wish I'd ended things right then. But grief makes you foggy and conflict feels impossible when you're already fighting a bigger battle. So I let it slide and I started keeping my grief to myself around her. I'd cry in the shower or in my car but put on a normal face at home." As the weeks passed, Natalie's supportive behavior steadily declined. She stopped asking how my dad was doing. She'd changed the subject when I mentioned hospital visits. She started making more plans with friends on evenings and weekends, precisely when I needed support most. When my dad died on a Tuesday night, it was both expected and shocking. I was with him and my mom when it happened, holding his hand. I called Natalie from the hospital parking lot at 3 a.m. and her first words were, "Did he finally pass?" Not, "I'm so sorry," or, "Are you okay?" But finally, like my dad's inconsiderate illness had been dragging on too long for her liking. Again, I was too numb to process what this said about her. I just told her I'd be staying at my mom's house for a couple days to help with arrangements, and she said that was probably for the best because she had a lot going on at work and couldn't really deal with the funeral stuff too. The funeral was set for that Saturday, just 4 days after his death. Standard timing for my family's religious traditions. On Thursday morning, I was at my mom's kitchen table helping her write the obituary when Natalie called. So about Saturday, she started with that tone people use when they're about to tell you something you won't like. "What about it?" I asked, already knowing where this was headed. "Well, Kayla's birthday thing is that day. We've had it planned for months and I already put money down for the wine tour. I can't really bail." I was silent for a moment, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "You're telling me you're not coming to my dad's funeral because you have a wine tour?" "It's not just a wine tour," she said, defensive now. "It's a whole weekend thing with the girls. We've been planning it forever. My dad died, Natalie. I know, and that sucks, but he was sick for a while, so it's not like this was a surprise. Kayla would be really hurt if I canceled last minute." I felt something inside me go very quiet and very cold. "Understood," I said. "Have fun on your tour." I hung up before she could respond, then turned off my phone completely. My mom was staring at me, having heard my half of the conversation. "She's not coming," I told her. My mom, who had always been polite about Natalie despite clearly having reservations, just nodded. "Well," she said after a moment, "that certainly clarifies things. Indeed it did. I turned my phone back on later that evening and saw several texts from Natalie, mostly variations of, "You're overreacting and I can't believe you're trying to make me feel guilty." The final one read, "Fine, be like that. I'm still going with the girls. You could use the space anyway." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened my phone settings, scrolled down to her name and hit block contact. Then I did the same on all social media. I also turned off our shared location settings and changed the passwords to our streaming accounts. I wasn't being strategic or plotting revenge. I was just done empty, too tired to argue or explain or do the emotional labor of helping her understand why I was hurt. The funeral came and went on Saturday. It was as lovely as a funeral can be. My dad was a high school music teacher and the choir he directed for 23 years sang at the service. About 200 people showed up, some former students who had graduated decades ago. It was proof of a life well lived, of someone who touched others in meaningful ways. Natalie's absence was noted by some of my relatives who had met her at family gatherings. But I just shrugged and changed the subject. I stayed at my mom's house for a week after the funeral, helping her sort through Dad's things and manage the administrative hell that follows a death. During this time, I told my mom about my decision to end things with Natalie. She was supportive, offering her guest room for as long as I needed, but I knew I needed my own space to process everything. Natalie texted my mom once during that week asking if I was okay since she couldn't reach me. And my mom replied simply, "He's managing, taking some space." Natalie didn't follow up, which confirmed for both of us that her concern was superficial at best. When I finally went back to our house the following weekend, I half expected to find her there ready for a confrontation, but the place was empty. According to a mutual friend who texted to check on me, Natalie was staying at Qley's place for the weekend. Fine by me. I spent the next 2 days packing my essential belongings, clothes, personal items, electronics, and a few pieces of furniture that were mine before we moved in together. I left all the shared purchases and anything I couldn't be bothered to argue over. For larger items I couldn't immediately move but didn't want to lose, like my desk and bookshelf, I took photos and left a list of what I'd be coming back for later. Then I called my friend Derek, who had a spare bedroom in his 2-bedroom apartment about 10 minutes from my office. He'd been looking for someone to split rent with since his previous roommate moved out, so the timing worked for both of us. By Sunday night I was settled into my new temporary home with my essentials, having arranged for a small storage unit nearby for the rest of my things. On Monday morning I sent an email to our landlord explaining the situation, that Natalie and I had separated and I had moved out. I confirmed that I would continue to pay my portion of the rent until the lease ended in 4 months, but requested that my security deposit be applied to my final month rather than returned to me upon move out. The landlord responded sympathetically, agreeing to my request and saying he'd discuss with Natalie her options for either finding a new roommate or potentially breaking the lease if she couldn't afford it alone. I specifically told him he could share that I had moved out, as I had nothing to hide. Then I waited, focusing on establishing a new routine. Work, gym, occasional dinners with Derek or other friends, regular calls with my mom. I processed my dual grief for my dad and for the relationship I thought I had as best I could. For exactly 18 days there was nothing from Natalie. No calls to mutual friends asking about me. No attempts to reach out through family, just silence. In retrospect, this absence of effort speaks volumes. She wasn't worried about my mental state after my father's death. She didn't wonder why I had suddenly vanished. She just assumed I was sulking somewhere and would eventually come crawling back. On the 19th day after I blocked her, there was a knock at Derek's door. When I opened it, there stood Natalie, eyes red and puffy, clutching her phone. "What the actual, __, Mike?" she said before I could speak. "You moved out. You ghosted me during the hardest time in your life when I was just trying to give you space." I stared at her, genuinely confused for a moment. Then it clicked. In her mind, she was the victim here. "How did you find me?" I asked, not inviting her in. "I had to call like 5 different people before Justin told me you were staying with Derek," she said, as if this was evidence of her dedication rather than proof that she'd waited nearly 3 weeks to even try looking for me. Justin was a coworker of mine who knew Derek from college. The connection wasn't hard to make if she'd actually tried. "Why would you do this to me?" "Do what exactly?" "Ghost me? Block me? Move out without even talking to me first?" I leaned against the door frame. "I didn't ghost you, Natalie. I broke up with you. I thought that was clear when you decided a wine tour was more important than supporting me at my father's funeral. Oh my God. Are you still on that? It was Kayla's 30th birthday. A milestone. We've been planning it for longer than my dad had been dying. Fascinating. Still not a good reason to skip your partner's father's funeral. She switched tactics, her voice softening into something pleading. Look, I know I messed up, but you just disappeared. Do you know how scary that was for me? I thought something might have happened to you. Clearly not, since it took you nearly 3 weeks to check. I was giving you space, she practically shouted, because you were being so weird and distant. My dad died, Natalie. I know that she was crying now, but it felt performative. But life has to go on. What was I supposed to do? Just sit around being sad with you forever? And there it was, the fundamental disconnect. She saw my grief as a choice I was making, an indulgence I could set aside if I really wanted to, not as the inescapable gravity. Well, it actually was. You were supposed to show up, I said quietly. That's all. Just show up. I did show up. I brought you food. I listened to you talk about your dad. You didn't come to the funeral. One day. I missed one day. The most important one. She wiped angrily at her tears. So that's it. 3 years together thrown away because I missed one event. I couldn't help but laugh, which only infuriated her more. It wasn't an event, Natalie. It wasn't a birthday party or a concert. It was me burying my father. It was the worst day of my life. And you chose not to be there because you'd rather drink wine with your friends. That is so unfair. No. What's unfair is that I spent 3 years with someone who sees my pain as an inconvenience. She tried to push past me into the apartment, but I blocked her way. We need to talk about this properly, she insisted. You can't just decide it's over without a conversation. I'm pretty sure I can. In fact, I already did. What about the lease? What about our stuff? What about I've already spoken with the landlord? I'm paying my share of the rent until the lease ends. I've taken my personal belongings and left everything else. I'll be back next weekend to get the rest of my furniture. The landlord has the details. So that's it. You're just done. I nodded. I'm done because of one mistake. No, because of who you showed yourself to be when it actually mattered. Look, Natalie, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just clear. We're not right for each other. You showed me that, and I believe you. She stared at me for a long moment, then her expression hardened. Fine. You know what? You're right. We are done, but don't come crawling back when you realize what you threw away. With that parting shot, which I assume she thought was devastating, she turned and stormed off down the hallway. Derek, who had been tactfully hiding in his bedroom during this exchange, emerged after I closed the door. Damn, was all he said. You want a beer? God, yes. We sat on his small balcony drinking in silence for a while before he finally asked, You okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Not really, I admitted. My dad's dead, and the woman I thought I might marry turned out to be someone else entirely. But I will be okay eventually. He clinked his bottle against mine. To eventually, he said, to eventually. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, Natalie has cycled through various tactics. Angry texts sent from friends' phones to get around the block. A tearful visit to my mom's house, which went poorly for her. As my mother has apparently been waiting 3 years to speak her mind. And finally, a handwritten letter explaining that she's forgiven me for overreacting and is ready to work through this difficult time together. I haven't responded to any of it. There's nothing left to say. My mom keeps telling me I dodged a bullet, which feels like an oversimplification. 3 years isn't a bullet. It's a chapter of my life, but it's a closed chapter now, and I'm okay with that. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. Grief comes in waves. Some days are easier than others. I've joined a rock climbing gym, started therapy, and I'm considering adopting a dog once I find a more permanent living situation. Small steps. I don't regret the relationship, and I don't hate Natalie. She's not a villain. She's just someone who showed me her priorities, and they didn't include being there for me when it mattered most. That's valuable information, and I'm grateful to have learned it now rather than later. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. All you have to do is notice the smell. Edit, didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Thanks for all the comments and support. I'm trying to read everything even if I can't respond to it all. Some things people keep asking. 1. No, I'm not considering getting back together with her. That door is closed, locked and tossed into the Mississippi River. 4. Non-emotions. That's our local disposal method of choice. 2. Yes, my mom is awesome. She made me promise to tell you all that she appreciates the supportive comments about her. 3. The fun Mike Cancer Mike comment wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern of her minimizing what I was going through. She once suggested I take a weekend off from being sad so we could go to a concert. 4. To everyone saying I should have communicated better before blocking her. Maybe you're right, but grief isn't rational. I didn't have the bandwidth to explain to a 27-year-old woman why skipping my dad's funeral was hurtful. Sometimes silence is a complete sentence. Or 5. For those asking if Natalie knew my dad well, yes, we'd been together 3 years. She spent holidays with my family. Dad taught her how to make his famous chili. He helped us move into our place. This wasn't a situation where they were strangers to each other. 6. And no, I don't think I was being cold or cruel by blocking her. I was protecting myself during an incredibly vulnerable time. If that's ghosting, then I guess I'm a ghost. Bill update. 3 months later. Things have moved quickly since my original post. I found a small 1-bedroom apartment closer to my office and moved in last month. The rent is higher than what I was paying at Derek's, but it's worth it to have my own space again. I got all my furniture out of storage and even splurged on some new pieces. I did end up adopting a dog, a 4-year-old pit mix named Buster, who had been at the shelter for over a year because he's missing a leg. And apparently that freaks people out. He's the chillest dog I've ever met. Perfectly happy to lounge around all day, but also down for whatever adventure I suggest. My apartment building is pet-friendly with a small dog park on site, which has been perfect for us. We're figuring out life together. Therapy has been helping a lot. Turns out grief is complicated, and having a professional guide you through it is worth every penny. I've learned that it's possible to miss my dad desperately while also continuing to live and even find joy. He would have wanted that. As for Natalie, well, there's been some drama there. After my original post, she escalated her attempts to contact me, including showing up at my workplace super inappropriate and trying to organize an intervention. With mutual friends who mostly declined to participate, thankfully. The final straw came when she somehow got access to my Netflix account. I changed most passwords but completely forgot about this one and changed my profile name to __, who ghosted me. Petty, but it made me realize I needed to fully disentangle our digital lives. Changed all my remaining passwords. Got a new email address. The works. Through mutual friends, I've heard she's dating someone new already. Some guy she met at a bar who apparently really knows how to communicate his feelings, unlike me. Good for them. Genuinely, mom is doing okay. We talk every day and I go over for dinner at least once a week. The house feels emptier without dad, but we're both adjusting. She's thinking about taking a watercolor class he always wanted to try but never got around to. Small ways of keeping him with us. I've started dating again, very casually. Nothing serious, just coffee or drinks here and there. I'm upfront about where I'm at emotionally, and most women have been understanding. No rush. If the right person comes along, great. If not, I'm good with Buster and my rock climbing gym and my gradually healing heart. Someone in the comments of my original post said that the best revenge is living well. I don't think of it as revenge anymore. Natalie is just a person who made a series of selfish choices, but I am trying to live well. Dad would have expected nothing less. That's it for updates. Thanks again for all the support. This internet stranger community helped more than you.